Now it's going to get weird because we're going to tap into Daniil Medvedev's forehand, and I'm going to tell you right away, he has one of the best forehands in the world. Now, it doesn't look like it's one of the best forehands in the world because he has some really quirky things happening. It starts off with the way he takes his racket back. I will add that Daniil's forehand looks different when he's in practice versus a match. Often in practice, and I'm not sure if he's working on different things, he will sometimes have a very shallow take back, and other times he will have more of a next gen take back. But then when he plays matches, his muscle memory kicks in, and this is what happens on his forehand. So he will take the racket back next gen style. So often his tip of the racket will be pointing forward, but then normally what happens to the next gen players, they will take the racket back and keep the racket on this side. This is naturally what happens when we take the racket back from this position. And this is something that you can try at home. If you have your racket pointing forward and take it back, naturally the racket will be more parallel to the ground and pointing straight towards the side fence. However, in Daniil's case, he likes to take the racket back in this way, a la Djokovic, but it's not like Djokovic because he also has the racket very high, well above his head. And the weird thing about this forehand is that there are some other players with high loops. So what I call a high loop is when the racket goes over the player's head before it starts to drop. Personally, I also have a very high loop, but generally with players that have a high loop, the racket will go over the head high, but then it will start to drop in the back. Daniil, however, will start kind of low, but then go higher in the back, which is very unusual. It is almost reminiscent of a transitional phase between the classic forehand and the modern forehand players, such as Ivan Lendl, who would take the racket back in a shallow way and then go up with the racket in the back. This is kind of reminds me of Medvedev's forehand as well. He does like to take the racket up in the back, but interestingly, this doesn't hurt his forehand at all, because from here he will go into a racket drop, he will make proper contact with his dominant shoulder in front on the vast majority of his forehands. Now, many people will correlate a high loop or a high backswing with problematic timing. This is simply not true, but it gets a little bit more complex than that. So on a player like Medvedev, who has been doing this type of backswing from day one and also happens to play the forehand with a bent arm, meaning that his arm is going to be bent at the moment of contact, he is absolutely not hindered when it comes to timing because of this high and long backswing. He makes perfect contact on most of his forehands, especially on fast surfaces. And you can see this because Daniil hates clay. He really hates playing on slow courts, and he absolutely loves playing on fast courts. In fact, the faster, the better.